the quiet rural expanse of Waller County, Texas, a young couple's whirlwind romance culminated in an impromptu wedding in October 2022. Jared James Dicus, then 21 years old, and Angie Diaz, a 21-year-old woman originally from Nicaragua, exchanged vows in a private ceremony that caught their friends and family by surprise. The marriage, held without much fanfare, marked the beginning of what should have been a new chapter filled with promise and shared dreams. However, beneath the surface of this union lay tensions that would soon erupt into unimaginable tragedy. Diaz, known for her warm personality and dedication to her work at a local meat market called Cheppy's, had immigrated to the United States seeking better opportunities. She was described by those who knew her as vibrant and hardworking, often sharing moments of joy on social media. Dicus, a local resident from a family with property in the area, appeared to be an ordinary young man, but early signs suggested that their relationship was far from stable. Friends of the couple recalled instances where Dicus displayed possessive behavior, posting videos online declaring Diaz as he's in a manner that struck others as oddly insistent, as if to ward off non-existent doubts about their commitment. These posts, emerging seemingly out of nowhere, raised subtle red flags among their social circle. Moreover, acquaintances noted that the pair's interactions were sometimes strained, with Dicus occasionally leaving gatherings abruptly and appearing visibly upset, while others enjoyed themselves. One friend remembered seeing Diaz at a Christmas party less than a month before the fateful events, where Dicus departed early with a distressed expression, leaving Diaz to navigate the evening alone. Although Diaz never openly discussed any issues in her relationship, some close to her suspected she might have been enduring domestic difficulties, perhaps too ashamed or fearful to admit that her marriage was not the idyllic partnership it appeared to be. Local authorities were already familiar with the couple prior to the tragedy. The Waller County Sheriff's Office had received complaints about disturbances at their residence, though these incidents never escalated to the level of severe violence that would later unfold. Such reports hinted at underlying conflicts, possibly rooted in jealousy, control, or unresolved arguments, but they did not prompt interventions that could have altered the course of events. The home where the couple lived was a modest cottage on a larger property owned by Dicus's family, providing them with a semblance of privacy in the expansive Texas countryside. On January 11, 2023, this setting became the scene of a horrific crime that shocked the community and drew national attention. That afternoon, around 4:30 p.m., Dicus's father entered the cottage and made a gruesome discovery. Angie Diaz's body lay dismembered, with her decapitated head placed in the shower alongside what appeared to be the murder weapon, a kitchen knife. The scene was described as one of extreme brutality, with evidence of stabbing and mutilation throughout the home. Bloodstains covered walls and floors, painting a picture of a violent struggle or outburst. Overwhelmed by the sight, Dicus's father immediately contacted emergency services, initiating a rapid response from law enforcement. Deputies from the Waller County Sheriff's Office arrived promptly and secured the area. Jared Dicus was present at the property and was taken into custody without resistance. During questioning, he confessed to the killing, providing details that aligned with the physical evidence found at the scene. Investigators determined that the murder had occurred earlier that day, and in the hours following the act, Dicus had left the home briefly. Surveillance footage from Cheppy's meat market, where Diaz was employed, captured him entering the store, stealing a can of beer, and consuming it in the parking lot. This peculiar behavior, occurring mere hours after the crime, added a layer of chilling detachment to the narrative. The motive behind the murder remained somewhat elusive in official statements, but patterns of domestic violence were cited as contributing factors. Sheriff Troy Guidry emphasized the severity of the violence, noting that while prior calls to the residence involved minor disputes, nothing prepared authorities for the level of horror encountered. The community reeled from the news, with friends and co-workers of Diaz expressing profound grief and disbelief. Memorials sprang up online and in local gatherings, honoring Diaz as a kind soul whose life was cut tragically short. As the legal process began, Dicus was charged with first-degree murder. His bond was set at $500,000, reflecting the gravity of the accusations. He remained in custody as the case progressed through the judicial system. Prosecutors built a strong case based on the confession, forensic evidence, and witness statements. The brutality of the crime led to widespread media coverage, highlighting issues of intimate partner violence and the often hidden dangers within relationships. In July 2024, after more than a year of pretrial proceedings, Dicus entered a guilty plea in an open court hearing. This decision spared the need for a full trial, which would have required reliving the graphic details for Diaz's family and the public. As part of a plea agreement, District Court Judge Gary Cheney sentenced him to 40 years in prison. Under Texas law, Dicus would be eligible for parole after serving half of his sentence, potentially in 2043, though the maximum term extended to 2063. The sentencing brought a measure of closure to those affected, but it could not erase the pain of the loss. Diaz's family, who had traveled from Nicaragua to attend court proceedings, expressed mixed emotions, relief that justice had been served, yet enduring sorrow over the senseless act. Advocacy groups seized on the case to raise awareness about domestic abuse, urging communities to recognize warning signs such as isolation, possessiveness, and escalating arguments. Statistics from organizations dedicated to preventing violence underscored that such tragedies are not isolated, with thousands of similar cases occurring annually across the United States. The plea and sentencing marked the end of the legal chapter, but the story continued in the confines of the Texas prison system. Dicus was transferred to the Wainwright Unit in Houston County, a facility known for housing inmates serving long sentences. There, he was placed in solitary confinement, a measure often taken for high-profile or violent offenders to ensure safety. Prison life for Dicus involved the routine isolation, typical of such environments, limited interactions, structured daily activities, and the weight of his actions bearing down in silence. However, on January 16, 2026, this chapter came to an abrupt and final close. Correctional officers conducting routine checks discovered Dicus unresponsive in his cell, hanging from a makeshift noose. Immediate efforts to revive him were made, including CPR by prison staff, but emergency medical personnel pronounced him dead shortly after arrival. Around 11 p.m., the Texas Department of Criminal Justice confirmed the cause as a self-inflicted injury, classifying it as suicide. An autopsy and investigation followed standard protocols to rule out foul play. Though preliminary findings supported the initial assessment, news of Dicus's death elicited varied reactions. For some, it represented a form of karmic justice, closing the loop on a cycle of violence. Others viewed it through the lens of mental health, pondering whether untreated issues contributed to both the murder and his ultimate demise. Diaz's supporters expressed a complex mix of emotions, acknowledgement that the perpetrator was gone, yet no true resolution for their lingering grief. The case of Jared Dicus and Angie Diaz serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of human relationships and the devastating consequences when underlying problems go unaddressed. It underscores the importance of intervention in cases of suspected abuse, the value of open communication among friends and family, and the need for societal support systems to prevent such horrors. While the legal system responded with accountability, the human cost remains immeasurable, leaving behind questions about what might have been done differently to save a young life full of potential. In reflecting on this tragedy, one cannot help but consider broader implications for how communities handle reports of domestic unrest. Early signs, such as the prior disturbances noted by law enforcement, highlight the critical role of proactive measures. Programs aimed at education, counseling, and safe havens could make a difference in similar situations. Moreover, the rapid progression from marriage to murder in just 4 months illustrates how quickly tensions can escalate without external checks. Friends who sensed unease but did not intervene might now advocate for greater vigilance, encouraging others to speak up when something feels amiss. The media's portrayal of the case, while sensational at times, brought attention to the epidemic of intimate partner violence, prompting discussions in forums, schools, and workplaces. Statistics reveal that 1 in 4 women experience severe physical violence from an intimate partner in their lifetime, emphasizing that Diaz's story is part of a larger pattern. Efforts to combat this include legislative pushes for stricter laws on domestic abuse, enhanced training for first responders, and increased funding for shelters. In Texas alone, resources like the Texas Council on Family Violence provide hotlines and support, potentially averting future tragedies. The cultural context also plays a role. Diaz's immigrant background may have added layers of isolation, making it harder to seek help in a foreign land. This aspect calls for culturally sensitive approaches in prevention programs, ensuring that language barriers and unfamiliarity with systems do not hinder access to aid. As time passes, the memory of Angie Diaz endures through those who loved her, perhaps inspiring positive change amid the sorrow. Her life, though brief, touched many, and her story compels a collective commitment to fostering safer environments for all. The demise of Jared Dicus in prison, while marking the end of his physical presence, does not conclude the dialogue on accountability and rehabilitation within the correctional system. Questions arise about mental health support for inmates, particularly those convicted of heinous crimes, and whether adequate safeguards exist to prevent self-harm. Prisons like Wainwright Unit follow protocols, but incidents like this prompt reviews and potential reforms. Ultimately, this case encapsulates the intersection of personal failings, societal oversights, and systemic responses, urging ongoing reflection and action to honor the lost and protect the vulnerable.